Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, and today we're having a bit more of a commentary type video with gameplay I just recorded about 5 minutes ago where the whole of the team were camping, and yes, it is my excuse. But anyway, today we're going to be talking about how Call of Duty World War 2, I think, falls under the same ratings as Infinite Warfare. Now obviously a lot of people were very excited about Call of Duty World War 2. I wasn't really, because when I went to the game store, people were like, "Oh yeah, you can pre-order it. COD's gone back to the roots. It's gonna be good again." I later found out by getting the game within the first week of it being released that it was good for about a month, and then once everybody found out how to exploit the game and how stale the gameplay actually is, that's when I started thinking of it as going downhill. Now, more or less, I went and started playing it, obviously in November when it came out, and I was having a lot of fun with it. There were no DLCs or anything, so it was just all the base game, and it was good because people were playing the game with skill. But then, after a while, when people found out how overpowered LMGs are, especially in hardcore mode, now I know the people playing the game are very different than the game itself. It's not technically the game's fault whether these people are exploiting it or not, but it's coming to the point where the game has enough exploits to just ruin the rest of the experience, and therefore making it more or less the game's fault that they have guns that are like that and they're not fixing it. Another thing I would like to mention is how boring and base style the maps are. Now, every single map, apart from one or two of the war maps, the default ones, are all just, you go one of three ways. You go down the middle, the left, or the right. And really, that system gets very boring because then it just makes the whole game very predictable and quite unfair depending on which team gets the upper hand first. Because more or less, as soon as your team sets up a line of defense, you're more or less going to kill everybody who goes through it. But if the other team do it, then they're going to kill everybody on your team that goes through it. So it's just a very predictable style of gameplay. Now, I know a few other people have done this on YouTube where they compare it to Call of Duty World at War, and I think that's fair enough. Call of Duty World at War is, I'm guessing, almost 10 years old by now. And when you compare a game from 10 years ago and a game 10 years after, you'd think that the one 10 years after would be better, because you think as with age it improves, they put a little bit more effort into it. But it seems now with a lot of Call of Duty games they're being very lazy with stuff, because I mean the last thing I can recall, the last good Call of Duty game was Modern Warfare Remastered, and that game is already old, so they pretty much just remade a game, not from the ground up, because it was already made. But then when it comes to World War 2, I feel like they should have just remastered Call of Duty World at War, because, World War 2, people say that World at War isn't in World War 2, but it's pretty obvious seeing as it's Nazis and stuff. So it is pretty much already a Call of Duty World War 2 game, and I am glad that they went back to the boots on the ground, but they didn't do it right. In Black Ops 3 and Infinite Warfare, the three-way entrance thing worked out fine. That worked out fine for that because there are many other movement options rather than just sprinting, jumping and crawling and stuff. You had options to fly over obstacles and wall run and all that, whereas now you don't. So literally that whole section of you just running down the side or the middle is you're all on the ground. So anybody who's up in a top window with a MG can just all fire at you as you come in, and you don't really stand a chance. And this is where I don't like how the unfair part of the game comes in, because I started noticing that everybody was using the STG-44. Now they ended up never nerfing the STG-44, especially in hardcore, considering it is extremely OP, and a lot of people use it. And I found that every time I played like hardcore domination, I would walk out of the spawn and get killed instantly. Now, the maps are pretty small as well. Now, I know while World War 2 has cool looking maps, it doesn't give you much room to move around in. Like, even in Call of Duty World at War, you could go into the back corners of the maps, you could climb over almost everything. You had those more movement options to go and stand on top of cars and all that. And if you don't believe me, then you can go and look at footage, like right now, if you really want to. There is a bunch of footage of how you can climb on top of vehicles and all that. And then when it comes to World War II, it has a bunch of invisible walls, so it relies on so many invisible walls that it just feels like the whole gameplay experience is restricted. Now, if a gameplay experience is restricted, then you get bored of it very quickly, because you're not finding new things to do. There is a reason why there are a lot of games like Battlefield and, say, even Grand Theft Auto that don't get boring very quickly, and that's because there's such a wide variety of things to do. And even in Battlefield, sure, it is still a first-person shooter, it's what you'd expect, but at least there is a lot of space to move around in and a lot of different combat options. Whereas when you go into Call of Duty World War II, middle, left or right, that's all you got. And if you want to go into a back corner of the map, it'll block you with an invisible wall. Or if you want to go into a corner of a building, sometimes it'll block it with an invisible wall. If you want to go on top of a car, it'll block with an invisible wall. So now you probably are getting the point that I'm trying to get across. It relies on invisible walls way too much to keep the players at bay. Now, I feel like if you want to keep players at bay, don't give them weapons that are a one-shot kill every single time, just with different fire rates. Because obviously if you do that, everybody's just going to use the most powerful one, and it's just going to be a ruined experience for everyone. Now, when it comes to actually you being on the winning team, because I know a few people who have made these videos and I feel like they've just come back from a match and they've just completely lost and they're just annoyed and they just want to go and make a video about hating on the game. But honestly, I'm saying this after playing the game for a fairly long time. It's just, even if you are winning, it's just boring. You don't really get a sense of victory out of it, because it feels like it's more based on luck now rather than actual skill. Because I've been playing Call of Duty games for a very long time and have become quite experienced with them, but then when they bring out a new game and you've been playing Call of Duty for so many years before that, you'd expect to have some sort of skill in it, but then that skill that you've been using for the past so many games that you've been playing is completely thrown out the window, and then you have to teach yourself on how to play it again, because it doesn't feel the same in any other way. Really, I feel like, because back when the older games were being made, you know, Modern Warfare and Black Ops and all that, those games, I didn't feel like they were competing series, or the companies were competing, more or less. But when it comes to now, it feels like a lot of the companies are competing against each other. Now, how does this relate to Infinite Warfare? Well, Infinite Warfare is very much a mix of Advanced Warfare and Modern Warfare 3, except nowhere near as good as those two games, because Advanced Warfare was good, Modern Warfare 3 was an absolutely great game, but they just haven't, they never did anything that really made it that exciting. It was more based on luck and how many DLCs you buy and all that. But I'm going to end the recording here. Tell me what you think in the comments. I really appreciate all your support. Please subscribe and like, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you and bye.